I read an article today concerning the Arabs living in Israel, protesting the nation-state law, and they want Israel basically to be a Palestinian state still. For the most part, they feel that Israel is really a Palestinian state. Even though they're citizens of Israel, it should be still considered a Palestinian state and not a Jewish state. And yesterday they had rallies, or Saturday I believe it was, Israel's Saturday, and protests against that new nation-state law. And they went around waving Palestinian flags, chanting and expressing their desire to destroy Israel and basically bring it back under Arab control. And these are the Arabs that are citizens of Israel. And their biggest complaint is that because the Jews stole their land. And they have no business of being in Israel, any part of Israel, north, south, east, or west. And if it wasn't for the West, probably today there'd be no Jews in Israel. Well, I don't really believe that. Really? I'll show you some statistics here. I'll read to you some statistics in a few moments that shows you just the opposite in many other areas around this world where that exactly has happened. The decrease of the Jewish population. Yesterday, and I'm not going to read the whole article, but it says, yesterday we saw, this is Saturday actually, we saw PLO flags, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, in the heart of Tel Aviv. We heard the calls. With blood and fire, we will redeem Palestine. They have their own problems in Israel, where the Arabs and the leftists want to destroy that country. Isn't it ironic? Something very similar what's happening here in these United States of America. We have leftists that even want a border. They want open borders. We have leftists that wants to turn this country into a socialistic country. Yeah, that's really worked well everywhere else it's been tried. Just to name two things on their agenda. I don't know. Are you concerned about it? No, because I know what God's Word says, and He'll have the last word on the matter. Period. Unfortunately, there might be some hard times that people go through, and there might be some horrific events that might happen because of these views, and people determined to carry out their viewpoints, even if it means violence. In Israel, that's a very real possibility. And it says, yesterday we saw PLO flags in the heart of Tel Aviv. We heard the calls, with blood and fire, we will redeem Palestine. They want to cancel the national anthem there in Israel, fold up the flag and cancel Israel as the national state of the Jewish people, and turn it, as their spokesman said, into an Israeli-Palestinian state. It goes on. I'm not going to read all the 4th page of this article. At times, some participants chanted in support of Palestine and against Israel, including cries of, "With blood and fire we redeem Palestine," and, quote, "million of martyrs are marching to Jerusalem," end of quote. Well, they're very prophetic if you really think about it. In the Gog-Magog war, that's exactly what's going to happen. But once again, God will have the last word. That's enough of that article. And of course, for years now, and I'll show you some maps that are a few years old, the biggest claim is that the Palestinians since 1947 slowly but surely has suffered land loss and supposedly, and you're going to hear a lot more of this in the future, ethnic cleansing carried out by the Jewish state. Put on the first map, it shows you the 4 different maps of the Palestinian land loss between 1946 and 2010. There it is. The green represents, in 1946, Palestinian land, supposedly, and where Palestinians dwelled and controlled. And the white areas would be the Jewish land where Jews lived. Obviously, you can see the green area, according to this map. This map is bogus, by the way. It has an agenda that pushes a completely different viewpoint than what the real facts are. But I just want to show you what they peddle out there. Then you got the UN plan of 1947, and of course, Palestine was divided, and you have the white areas, once again, Israeli land, and the green now, Palestinian land. They lost half of their land, supposedly. And then you get to 1967, or from 1949 to 1967. Of course, 1967 is when you had a war, and it shrunk again, the Palestinian land and the Jewish land. Palestinian lands in the green, the Jewish lands in the white. All the way up to 2007. In some maps, it'll even show you 2010, and they're fairly similar. You have green representing the Palestinian lands, and the white, the color area of white there, you have Jewish land. You got it? Just keep it up there while I read you something to show you these maps and what's written and what's said out there concerning the Palestinian land loss is really, well, let's just use the terminology our present president is using, fake news. The maps shown above have been widely circulated by the BDS movement. And those are the maps. And they are misleading and dishonest. They appear in the Zionism Unsettled Study Guide. They appear on the websites of the Israel-Palestinian Mission Network, or the IPMN. And this one might surprise you. And the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship, the PPF. They also appear in supporting materials for the BDS overtures submitted to the 2014 Presbyterian General Assembly. The intent of the maps is clear: to falsely demonstrate an ethnic cleansing that did not occur. One perpetrated by the colonizer Jews upon the Arabs. Incendiary words as colonizer and ethnic cleansing are used repeatedly in the BDS literature. I think I'm going to change that BDS literature just to BS literature. In 1946, the area labeled Palestine was the British Mandate of Palestine. That was a mess. All who lived there were Palestinians, Arab Palestinians, and Jewish Palestinians. Of course, that was the label given to them by none other than the British when they had boots on the ground. And we already covered all this in the Last Day series, towards the beginning of this series, in what Britain's role was in this whole mess. In 1946, and the map you see there on the left side, these terms changed. Not consider the Arab Palestinians the Jewish Palestinians any longer. The Arab Palestinians are now simply Palestinians. The word Palestinian now means Arab and no longer refers to all the people who live there, and the Jewish Palestinians are simply Jews. In 1946, Jews paid over 50% of property taxes in Palestine. Almost half the land was public land, owned by no one and ministered by the British. The premise that the land was almost all Arab land is nonsense. It was shared land and belonged to no particular ethnic group. Now, looking at the 1967 map, second one from the right on your screen, you see that all Jews and Arabs lived in all those areas of the British Mandate of Palestine, including the West Bank, Gaza, and Jerusalem. Now, when 1967 came around, in terms of ethnic cleansing, keeping in mind that before 1948, Jews and Arabs lived in all those areas of the British Mandate of Palestine. And I repeat, including the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. Now, after 1967, all that changed. Now, the Arab population of Israel at that time approximately was 390,000 people. And even though Jews lived in Gaza, East Jerusalem, and West Bank at the time, guess what happened in 1967? And there's 390,000 people of Arab descent living in Israel. The Jewish population of the West Bank after that period of 1967, the population went down to zero. Ethnic cleansing? Yeah. The Arabs doing the ethnic cleansing. The Jewish population of the Gaza Strip after the 1967 war. That too went down to zero. No Jews could live there any longer. East Jerusalem, the same thing, even though that's changing now because of settlements. But who's ethnic cleansing who? In 1967, the only land in Israel, Palestine, Israel-Palestine, if you want to say it that way, that was ethnically cleansed, was the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip. All three areas were 100% ethnically cleansed of Jews after the 1948 war. And there's even some horrible pictures that shows you, I don't know if I have these pictures here or not, Jews being escorted out at gunpoint by Jordanian troops in these areas. Now put up picture 1. There they're leaving through the gate. You don't see the lower portion part of that picture in this scene, but they're being escorted out by gunpoint. These are Jews. Go to picture 2. Same thing. They're being told that they had to leave. And these are just some of the pictures. Now there's scores of pictures. This actually came from one of the Life magazine pictures. There's scores of these pictures out there of Jews being told they no longer could live in these areas by the Arabs. Who's ethnic cleansing who? And those are the two things I wanted to point out tonight, is their continual complaint that they have lost their land, and number 2, that they're being ethnically cleansed. Two points that are fake news, false information, and only picked up by people that want to pursue that agenda with the goal of destroying Israel as a nation as we know it today. Go to picture 3. There they are, being marched. I think this is the old city. I'm not sure, but of East Jerusalem, but if not, it's one of those areas. And they're being told they have to go. They didn't have a choice. In these days, Israel is not as strong militarily as they are today. So there was no choice. They had to pack up and go. And of course, the pressure of, especially British at the time, was so immense that the Israelis, the Jews, thought they, at that time, had to choose their battles wisely after being able to come back to their homeland, even though it was such a much smaller area than it is today now that it's expanded out and it's taken control of some of the areas. And that's not even half of what God has promised them. If you look at what God promised them in the scriptures and you would map it out, it would be over 300,000 square miles. Not even close with the nation of Israel is today. Do I believe that's going to happen in the future? I think so. If not, really close to that. Go to picture 4. Well, there's one of those Jordanian troops, right? I mean, soldier right there, escorting, to put it mildly, Jews out of the areas of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. Now, those are the 3 main areas that this ethnic cleansing happened, where there was a larger population of Jews settled there. You don't see any of this ever happening. I mean, maybe being told in the news. You don't even see this being taught in schools. whether at the high school level or higher education institutions such as colleges and universities. You're not going to see it happen, my friend. I don't know if it's another picture. If there is, put it up. I don't know what picture we're on. Oh, here's a good picture. Yeah, the picture of the old wall. And the Jews told them to be being escorted out of a certain area that they were settled in. And this is their march. Now, this is another shot of a different march of Jews being led out and told they had to. Who cleansed who? Who cleansed who is my point. I don't think there's any other pictures. If there's not any pictures, come back to me. In 1967, the only land in Israel, Palestine, I'm just calling that for now because that's how it's being referred to, that was ethnically cleansed was the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza Strip. If you could put up those green maps, those Israel maps again with the green and white. That 2007 map. What doesn't tell you in that map, and that's why it's so misleading, the one on the right there, misses the, back in 2010 census, the 1.4 million Arab citizens of Israel. By the way, who not only live in that land, but they own land throughout Israel. And these are the same people that are protesting this last Saturday and claiming millions will march on Israel and Jerusalem to once again reclaim what's not theirs. 1.4 million Arabs, citizens of Israel, own and live in Israel. Not to mention the thousands of Palestinians who own land and live in areas of the West Bank. It also fails to reveal that at the present time, the only ethnically cleansed land in Israel, Palestine, is the Gaza Strip, which is ethnically cleansed of Jews. The population of Jews in Gaza is 0. Now, come back to me. Where is the outrage where Jewish population were ethnically cleansed, not only in Israel, but also in other parts of the world, especially in Eastern Europe and Africa? Here's the statistics. In 1948, in Algeria, which is in northern Africa, there was 140,000 Jews. In 2005, how many do you think are counted? 0. In Iraq in 1948, 135,000 Jews. 2005, only 60 could be counted. In Lebanon, Israel's northern neighbor, 5,000 in 1948 Jews living in Lebanon. In 2005, 50. In Libya, 1948, 38,000 Jews could be counted. In 2005, once again, 0. Morocco, another northern Africa nation, 265,000 Jews in 1948. 2005, 3,500. Syria, 30,000 Jews in 1948. In 2005, 100. Probably not even that now, with the civil war that's been taking place there for years. Tunisia, 105,000 Jews in 1948. In 2005, 1,100,000. Yemen, a nation in the southern Saudi Peninsula, 55,000 Jews in 1948. In 2005, 200. In Egypt, in 1948, 75,000 Jews. It's not even 5% of that now in 2005. All in all, in the nations that I read to you, there were 848,000 Jews. Because of ethnic cleansing, there's only 5,110 Jews still living in those nations. Where's the outrage over the years? Where's the concern? Over the ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing didn't stop after World War II. $848,000 Jews in that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 nations that I read to you existed in 1948. In 2005, 5,110. Now let's look at just Israel alone. Just Israel. The Arab population of Israel, I read to you, in 1948 was 300,000. That's the Arab population of Israel. 300,000. In 2005, 1,400,000. Doesn't look like ethnic cleansing to me. Usually when ethnic cleansing is practiced, there's a decrease in population of a certain ethnic group, not an increase from 300,000 to 1,400,000. Why are we not told these facts? Because, I repeat, it's not service the purpose, the agenda of the powers that be that want to destroy Israel. And I'm not just talking about human players. I'm talking about the unseen world too. Back to this. The Middle East today is the most violent and dangerous place on the earth. The BDS movement, use of loss of land maps, and the constant reference to Jewish ethnic cleansing is reckless, dishonest by the plainly observable facts. It is throwing kerosene on the fire. That's to say the least. And I think that's all I'll go. That's all I have time for. Now, what's going to happen to all this area, especially the surrounding nations around Israel that want to see it destroyed, that are getting more bolder, and are building more what they think is a resistant force with the Iranian support. Remember, Iranians are in Lebanon. They're now in Syria. They're in Gaza. I think shortly they're going to be in Jordan also, if they're not already laying groundwork there. They think they're going to have Israel surrounded. And you know about the Psalm 83 war. But the Psalm 83 war is not the only prophecy concerning what's going to happen to all these Arabs in the Middle East that wants to see Israel's destruction. And for that, further prophecy, we have to go back to the Old Testament and look at one of the minor prophets. To see what exactly is going to happen to these Palestinians and their supporters. Outside of the Psalm 83 war teachings that we already done. That I've already done. Now, it might be part of the Psalm 83 war, but it's a continuing prophecy of why we have that problem in the first place and who exactly are the participants that's driving this insanity and madness and hatred towards Israel from the seen and unseen world. Now, who is this prophet in the Old Testament that has something to say about it? And it's one we haven't looked at before. You want to know? Play a song. Now let me know you want to know.